Hello everyone, this is Dr. Darkness, and today I'm going to be talking about the sort of current state of affairs with Kingdom Hearts 3. It's just a general discussion of the gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 3 because it has been so long since I've made a video kind of looking at that, and we've had a lot of extra stuff that's come out since then. So I just thought I'd go for this general overview. And obviously at this point, because all we've got is trailers, at least, until whatever comes out of this event this week happens, all we've got is short trailers that are there for mainly looking nice rather than showing the in-depth mechanics or anything like that. So let's just get started on with basic combat. So for the most part, I think it looks okay. Certainly an improvement on what we had in the handheld games. It's quite fast and it should hopefully make for fairly exciting battles. However, obviously all of the trailers up to this point have shown the combos with negative combo and loads of finishes, so it's basically just one hit and then going into finishes. It's hard to tell exactly how fluid the actual combos will be because flashiness is probably more important than function in trailers, because you're showing this to the general audience who's just going to look at things looking cool rather than looking deep into stuff. But if there's one issue, it's that Sora moves around too much, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's the way that he does. In Kingdom Hearts 2, certainly, if you were locked onto an enemy, you would sort of stay glued to that enemy, whereas this Sora kind of looks a little bit all over the place. But I don't think this will be too much of a problem in the final game. I think, again, part of this is due to the way the trailer's set up. Sora isn't attacking individual things, he's trying to show off cool-looking attacks. And I think, in 0.2, it wasn't really a major problem, so for Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't think it will be a major problem either. It's just that's something, for now, that we haven't received sort of confirmation that it's not going to be like that. So yeah, in terms of that, this is basically how it's going to be with all of them, to be honest. But I think that, as a whole, it's shaping up okay. We need to see a bit more gameplay from a point of, a demo either released to the public or just at events that people can actually show footage of. Presumably there's going to be something like that at the event this week, but whether we can actually see that ourselves or not, or just have to rely on secondhand information, I guess we just have to wait and see. So obviously a big part of action games is the things that you're fighting, the enemies, and we've seen quite a lot of enemies throughout the trailers. But we have been told, this is a long time ago, that the enemy AI is going to be more intelligent than in past games. So basically, the Heartless are going to actually work together a bit. And we saw a bit of that in the E3 2015 trailer. We haven't really seen any evidence of that since then, and 0.2 didn't have it either. I hope that's something they're still going for, because it sounded like it could be interesting. But it's something we need to see a bit more of. In terms of the bosses, well, Rock Titan looks like he could be a bit annoying with the, trying to stay on the cliff and he's knocking you off and all that kind of stuff. But it's probably, with the way that things have looked, it's probably a tutorial boss, so it's kind of like Twilight Thorn equivalent, just to show off the game's mechanics and that kind of thing without being a big thing in itself. So I'm not really going to look into that one too much. The Iron Giant looks pretty good, I think, the way that he actually reacts when you hit him with finishes and stuff, which is something that giant-ish bosses in the handheld games would never do. And my guess is that this is going to be like a semi-boss. It'll be a mini-boss that you'll encounter on the way through Olympus, and then it might pop up as an actual enemy, sort of like the Behemoth did in Kingdom Hearts 1, and like how Final Fantasy bosses tend to do quite a lot. It will be an enemy that you'll probably encounter a few times throughout the game, and I think that's fine and a decent thing to do. Now, the Toy Story boss is the one that could probably go either way. I think I've seen potential there for a pretty good boss. Also potential for an awful boss. I like the idea of having platforming as part of a boss fight. I think having it where you're trying to reach the boss as part of the actual thing is a nice way to change things up from just trying to use your combos and various attacks to win. But I think this will only work if it's a sort of temporary measure. If it's something where you kind of jump up and you manage to get a couple of hits, but then you fall down and you have to get all the way back up again while it's still firing projectiles at you, then it could end up being a bit annoying. Well, not really a bit annoying, very annoying. But I think if it worked something where, you had to platform to reach the boss, and then maybe you hit it once, and maybe knocked it down to the ground, and then you get a chance to make a load of different combos at you, I'm sort of thinking like how Zexion works in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, where he will sort of send you into the book world or whatever it is. You can't actually hurt him there, it's just about getting him out of that position, and then you can lay into him until he goes off and does it again. I think if it goes like that and the projectiles aren't too relentless, I think it could actually be pretty good. But if it is, you know, the projectiles are constant and there's no way out of it, it could be pretty awful. Hopefully it ends up the former. But here, this is probably the biggest potential problem in the game. We know in terms of bosses, human bosses should hopefully be good, at least some of them, because of Phantom Aqua, who was, well, brilliant in 0.2. Hopefully we get a lot of bosses along those lines, and hopefully any giant bosses are at least limited to not being really irritating, even if they're not great bosses themselves. All we can do is wait and see until we get a view of a full boss fight, or obviously we get to play the game ourselves. Now in terms of flow motion, I think things are looking pretty good. I liked flow motion in Dream Drop Distance as a sort of beta flow motion. It was very rough around the edges, and it did sort of contribute to the already broken combat that Dream Drop Distance had. But I think with a bit more refinement, as it looks like it's having in Kingdom Hearts 3, it looks a lot more fluid with the way it works with the rest of movement and everything, and hopefully that means that it's actually going to be a positive addition to the game. And with larger worlds, it makes sense that you have something that allows you to get around a bit faster and a bit easier. Obviously, the main concern is the platforming. Honestly, that's the biggest worry out of all of Kingdom Hearts 3 because of how bad it was in 0.2. And I think the big cause of that was the auto jump. And honestly, I think the best way to do it is make it not automatic. Make it respond to a button prompt that will make you do these little vaults and that sort of thing. That would just make it a bit better, because then you're not going to be kind of jumping on something and then the auto jump isn't sure whether you're jumping on it or haven't or whatever, and then it just makes you fall off unfairly, as 0.2 tended to do. So that's something that really does need addressing from 0.2. Hopefully it gets it. Traction flow is still a traction flow. It looks fairly disposable. Hopefully it's not broken. I can't really be bothered to talk about attraction flow for more than a few seconds, so let's move on to the actual interesting mechanic, Keyblade transformation / drive form / situation command. We can't tell at this point how many Keyblade transformations there will be, whether there are going to be a different one for every Keyblade, or if there'll be a few different types, like there'll be a few Keyblades that go into a shield form, that sort of thing. But, you know, more options is always good. More options is fine as long as they're balanced, and we can't really tell that until the game's in our hands. The issue obviously comes with the situation commands, the way everything's been used. I think the whole point of using your drive forms through a situation command, kind of working a bit like an evolution of command styles in Birth by Sleep, it's, to be frank, a downgrade on what we had in Kingdom Hearts 2. I think if you want to use guard form, you should be able to just go and select guard form, not do specific combos for a while to build up to a situation command or something. And I know there's this whole thing of it shouldn't be like Kingdom Hearts 2. Well, yeah, it shouldn't. It should be its own thing. But if it's going to make changes, could it make changes for the better rather than for the worse, please? The concern is basically that Kingdom Hearts 3's gameplay is going to boil down to trying to build up as many of these situation commands as you can and then rolling off these really powerful things. Obviously, it's not going to be quite like in 0.2 where you had tier 4 magic right at the start. My guess is that as you unlock magic, the next tier will be the situation command, so you unlock fire, and then you can use fire as a situation command when you build it up. Something like that. So then at least there's a bit of progression, but it depends how broken these potentially end up being, how powerful they are, and how random it is. It seemed in 0.2 that if you used all of your magic, it could give you one of them, it could give you 3. And I think the situation commands for magic, it seems like a pretty good idea. I think it's just the issue that they're kind of shoving everything into the situation commands basket, and it just isn't really going to work that well if it ends up like that, because you're basically just waiting to use the situation commands and it becomes a poor man's command deck, which is not what I want to see. And I think this is really what's going to make or break the game, without trying to sound too dramatic, because I'm sure even if they do end up a bit broken, the game will probably still be pretty fun to play. But this is what's going to decide if it's going to live up to Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 or not. I think it's how this is handled and the signs so far suggest it could be a potential cause for concern, but hopefully any issues are ironed out. So that's all I have to say. It's just a bit of a general discussion, a kind of recap of everything that's come on so far in terms of gameplay. I wanted to talk about it on the channel now because it's been so long since I've had a proper talk about gameplay in Kingdom Hearts 3, and because we're going to presumably be getting a lot more information in the coming weeks and months as we get closer to the release, presumably towards the end of this year. Given the recent history of Kingdom Hearts games, there are certainly causes for concern. However, I think there are also more causes for optimism. I think when we're looking at this game just in itself, it looks like it's going to be really fun. Hopefully they iron out any of the issues that are there, and the ones that look like issues from the trailers are because the trailer's going for a different thing than showing in-depth great action gameplay. But yeah, that's all I have to say, so please leave a comment with your thoughts on how Kingdom Hearts 3 is shaping up right now in terms of gameplay. And while you're down there, please like this video if you did, and if you liked it, then check out my other videos and subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.